If you see a discrepancy between Ken Palm and the betting line, what do you make of that? Because sometimes we see this with home teams where I think the betting market gives a little bit more credit to the home team, which is a valid point, especially with some of these teams with amazing home court advantages. But I don't know. Sometimes that's a bit of a red flag to me. Like sometimes it feels like you are not getting value. Like let's take the specific game now because I feel like I'm dancing all around it, and maybe we should just talk about it. Because I'm looking at this BYU and Kansas game. The number 7 Jayhawks laying 6.5 at home, a total of 153.5. This is one of those instances where the line is a bit longer than what we're seeing at Ken Palm, which usually the lines are pretty close to what we have over at Ken Palm. Ken Palm has Kansas winning 79-74. So that's 5 points. The line is 6.5. So do you think this line is bigger because of the home court advantage? Why do you think this line is bigger?
Two things. One, because of the home court advantage, and two, because it's Kansas. And odds makers know that they can lay that extra half point, and teams will still bet it, right? Like, you'll see this all the time with Kansas, Duke, Kentucky. The perfect scenario for what you're talking about, where when you're looking at these teams and how they're rated on Ken Palm and when the line's off, that UConn Creighton game the other last week in the middle of the week when UConn was coming off that huge win against Marquette, everybody thought they were going to win the national championship out of that. This team was never going to lose a game the whole season. You look at Ken Palm, and it pretty much had the game as like a pick'em. Creighton maybe even should have been favored in the game. UConn was favored by 3.5, and everybody was still betting UConn. Why? Because odds makers knew that it's all recency bias and it's all perception. And after watching UConn beat the number 4 team in the country by 30, like, of course they'd lay a small number on the road against Creighton. So, again, you'll see that all the time with these big teams when they're at home or when they're coming off massive wins and the public is just driving these numbers and it's all perception-based. You saw that last year in the tournament with Duke and Tennessee. When Duke was one of the hottest teams coming into the tournament, Tennessee should have been favored in the game. Instead, Duke was 3.5-point favorites and everybody was betting Duke. Tennessee ends up winning that game by double digits. So it's a great point, Chelsa. It's something to keep in mind. Like, don't be afraid to kind of use the Ken Palm metrics and see like where you can get value in these games, because I know a lot of people like don't look at that stuff and they don't really want to just bet games vote based on like value. Like when a game should be like 6, when a game should be 5 and you're getting 6.5, and to bet it like long term, you are going to win if you do that. And if you take points when you're getting like 1.5, 2 points of value.
What are the Cinderella teams that you kind of have on your radar? Maybe a team that's not equipped to win it all, but maybe a long shot pick to maybe make it to like the Final Four. Who are your sleeper teams?
Sleeper teams. Okay. If you would have asked me this before the weekend, I would have said Washington State was like, to me, a team that just nobody was really paying attention to. And they've obviously beaten Arizona twice this year. They went and then lost to Arizona State after that, which, it's a bad loss, but I can understand to a certain extent, the 2 days after beating Arizona on the road. But to me, they've got, a really great balance on their team. They've been playing exceptionally well since a slow start. It's a team really that nobody really thinks about, and it hasn't been in a tournament even since 2008. And then if you still start to go into those like mid majors, I still think like Dayton is a team that people have to watch out for. They've got a lot of quality there. They've struggled, unfortunately. I live in Virginia. They've played 3 games in the state of Virginia. They've lost all 3 of them to the three big schools in the Atlantic 10. But I think they're really good, and that's a team that maybe the name doesn't stick out, but I think they've got a quality like a VCU from the same league that can maybe make a run.
Erick, you look at some of the teams that made the Final Four last year, San Diego State, FAU, both of those teams 80-1 right now to win the national championship. Maybe not to win the title, but if you had to pick one of those teams to get back to the Final Four, do you like the Aztecs better or the Owls?
Yeah, I think San Diego State's probably a little bit better shape. One of the things that the Mountain West offers and is just, the quality in a mid-major league. I mean, they might get 6 teams if they can mathematically sort of navigate the last few weeks of the season where, all their teams kind of avoid bad losses and, they're playing each other. So those are going to be quality losses. And they're tested pretty much every night, and again, like they have a style, they play great defense that's going to travel. They've got some scoring. Jason Leday is really, really good. I think they have the best shot. For me, Florida Atlantic, obviously a great story. And, honestly, they might be better this year or similar to at the level that they were last year. They're just playing, a more difficult schedule. They played a really tough out-of-conference schedule to get ready for the tournament and also potentially put them in position for an at-large berth. And then playing in the American, it's more difficult than playing in the Sun Belt. And so they've taken a few losses. And, South Florida is another team. We talk about sleeper teams, like a team that come out of nowhere. They're leading the league by 3 games. So their performance in the regular season hasn't been good, but, been as good. But in the tournament, they have almost the entire lineup from last year that has that experience to try to make a run. I just think they're not as, defensively oriented. They're going to more rely on their shooting night in and night out. And if they do have a bad night, that would probably be their demise.
PJ, are you as sold on trying to buy stock in Cincinnati as I am? Like, I feel like this is the ultimate tease team. Like, before Joe Burrow got hurt this year, I was all in. I said, this is the ultimate value play. The one quarterback who can take down Patrick Mahomes is Joe Burrow. I'm thinking about it now. I'll probably play some kind of futures bet on the Bengals again this season.
I mean, that seems kind of like the trendy play just because, at the current price right now, nobody wants to buy Baltimore. Kansas City obviously could win it again. They're going to be in the playoffs again, but they're probably going to go through another one of those stretches in the regular season where they lose maybe 3 or 5 games and you can get some better value on them. Buffalo, we'll see what happens with them, but it just doesn't feel like they're going to get over the hump, especially with McDermott there as their head coach. And that kind of brings you to like teams like the Bengals or like the Texans or maybe like the Jets. If, Rodgers is back healthy to go along with that defense, the Bengals certainly are going to be the team that a lot of people like. And the reason being, it feels like this is kind of their last ride with these guys on offense. They're already getting rid of Joe Mixon. Tyler Boyd's a free agent. I don't expect him to be back. There are going to be a lot of surprising things that we see in NFL free agency. There always are. This, to me, was not one of them. I think this was, you could just see this coming. The Bengals giving the franchise tag to T. Higgins. I'm expecting this offseason they also give Jamar Chase a long-term deal. That way, they already paid Burrow, they already paid Chase, and now they know where to go after that. So I think they're getting one more year of T. Higgins. They're going to draft a wide receiver this year in the NFL draft, make him wide receiver 3 this season, let him kind of learn under T. Higgins, under Jamar Chase, and then they're hoping that draft pick can turn into their number 2 wide receiver on the other side of Chase, because you're just not going to be able to pay Burrow, Chase, and Higgins, Burrow, quarterback 1 money, Chase and Higgins, wide receiver 1 money. You just can't do it, even with the salary cap going up. We know Chase is going to make a boatload. So I think it's the last year of T. Higgins in Cincinnati. I think it's great for us from a betting perspective if you're looking at him in fantasy or looking at him for season-long props, because certainly the man wants to get paid. I think he's one of the more underappreciated receivers in football. He's really, really good. But because he's with Jamar Chase, he acts as the second wide receiver on the team. But that's kind of what I expected with Cincinnati. I expected them to tag Higgins. I think they're going to let Boyd walk. They're going to draft a receiver. And then Higgins will go play for some other team next season. And they're going to hope that whatever rookie wide receiver that they get works out and can turn into their wide receiver 2 of the future alongside of Jamar Chase.
As a Titans fan, I can attest to the fact that it's not as easy done as it is easy said. When we let A.J. Brown walk and said, we can find somebody in the draft, it's not that easy.